everybody. Balls to the wall short, number 3. My man, Billy Martin Jr. How are you doing today, buddy?
I feel like going to the mountains.
That's well put. That's well put. And I'm Kenny Matthews, your other co-host of Balls to the Wall at Balls to the Wall Short. We wanted to get something in really quickly. My man, Billy Martin Jr., and since you all know is an agent, he's got a little thing called the MLB draft this weekend. So it's been a little busy on that phone. So we're going to squeeze in a quick one here for you guys. And we think you will like it. It's baseball related. It's the Mount Rushmore of baseball. Since the All Star break is coming up here in the next couple of days, got the weekend ahead. No controversy this year at the All Star game with not being moved from Atlanta to Denver. It seems like we got a little harmony, Billy Martin. I mean, a little harmony in the game. And it's a good time for baseball to showcase its game. No competition from other sports. I mean, yes, we do have, well, what are they calling it now? They don't call it the British Open anymore, do they? I don't know what they call it now. I think it's called the Open. I think it's what it is. So you'll have that. But the best thing about that is the Open, it's always early in the morning for us. So they have zero competition this weekend, really, with the game, having the All-Star game come in with all the festivities, Ohtani coming back again. I thought that baseball did a great job with adding Miguel Cabrera and Alberto Pujols, also kind of your veteran. I thought that was a really nice touch. I know Manfred gets killed around here a lot, but he did do something right on that one. But we do appreciate you guys listening to us. Please subscribe to us. Just hit the like button and make a comment. Comment's the best thing on either Rumble, YouTube, Spotify, or Anchor. That's what helps us out. We greatly appreciate it. Just a little comment one way or another. And hopefully this list of the Mount Rushmore of baseball, maybe you guys will show us what your lists are. Hey, we're up to debate. I mean, I think it's all kind of one of these things, Billy, where, hey, you get to pick your Mount Rushmore. You don't have to have any parameters to it. It's your list. So, that's the best thing about it. Who am I to say that your list is bad or off? Now, if you come up here and you start telling me that Robbie Thompson's on your Mount Rushmore baseball, I might have a problem with that. But I want to give you, I was going to do one. What I did was I did a pitchers list, and I also did just a regular Mount Rushmore list over here. And I'll go through what my pitchers list was, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And at the end, I'll share people with you who did not make the list, but were on the fence for me, where I debated. This was really a fun project for me, Billy, because I got to go back and look at some stats of some of these guys. And it really was eye-opening to me. I mean, you kind of gloss over their greatness and you really forget how good some of these guys really were. We're talking about the iconic mortals of the game of baseball, that started in the 1870s. I mean, it was fun. It was fun. And I'll tell you this, my baseball list for me, for my parameters from the pitching side was, I did factor in longevity. I factored in games won. I also factored in also ERA, the triple crowns of baseball, which is most wins, ERA, and what I'm forgetting one. God, if I'm brain dead. Wins, ERA, and strikeouts in a year, kind of like the triple crown in hitting. So I did do a little of that. But I know that since we do live in the Metroplex, some people are going to really like my number 4, and I really, really, really could not get around it because I'm a big guy of longevity. I've got Mr. Nolan Ryan at number 4. And we already know all of his benchmarks, the 7 no-hitters, the all-time strikeout list, the whole shooting match and all that. But for a guy to be throwing major gas in his mid to late 40s, you'll never see again, because guess what? Analytics won't allow it to happen. Going forward. So, I mean, but I've looked at Nolan Ryan here, and I wanted to go through a couple things in here. Was, 11 years he led the league in strikeouts, and a lot of those years are 300 plus, in a given year. That's a stat that's not going to ever be, I think, ever taken away again on that. Also, I found it kind of ironic that, his rookie year, he's part of the service. The only reason he was in the bullpen is because he had military obligations for the 69 Mets. So they never knew they couldn't pencil him in every 4 days into the lineup. So that's why he started in the pen. Now, do you think the Mets would like to have a do-over on that trade? With the Angels? Can you imagine if you had Nolan Ryan and Tom Terrific all those years together in their prime? I mean, not even their prime, when they're babies getting better. I mean, may have been the best 1-2 punch ever if that would have materialized at that point in time. But I wanted to say this about Nolan Ryan. I know he gets knocked for his win-loss record. It's close to being fairly 500. He has the most 1-0 and 2-1 losses of anyone. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize it until I went into that. Here is a guy that I know people are saying, well, he only won 20 games twice. I said, I don't think anybody could have won 20 games with those horrible Angel teams in the early 70s that he was playing for. It was basically him and Frank Tanana and nobody else. But anyway, his staying power is what was huge for me. I mean, we know about the strikeouts, obviously we know about that. We know about how he was also, to play in a league as long as he has, you never heard anybody bitch about him as a teammate. That to me is huge there and alone. And you won't find a lot more competitive guy on the mound. He would not give in. As great as his fastball was, I think his most underrated pitch is his curveball. Nobody really talks about his curveball. Everybody talks about that heater that he always used to throw. But that 12-6 curveball was unbelievable that he would drop on people. And Billy, you got to see him up and close a lot more than I did. You had to marvel at the guy's talent.
Well, I'll tell you something, man. I just saw his documentary recently too.
I pulled that up last night. I want to see it myself.
Oh, it's
Is it
great.
good?
He didn't even believe he was going to stick in the major leagues. Okay, he was studying to be a veterinarian. Okay, think about that. I mean,
veterinarian.
He gets to and he threw the 2 no-hitters within a month. And all of a sudden that he finally started to totally believe that maybe he'd be able to pay those, take care of Ruth and his family, The curveball, Tom House helped him get that. If Tom House had been involved with him from the beginning, I think we're talking about the hands down #1 best pitcher ever. Okay, because Tom not only taught him that high leg kick where he got his knee up so high like he did, right. He also taught him and proved his curveball. And we're talking about a guy that had 12 1-hitters to go along with his 7 no-hitters, that had 18 2-hitters. Okay. You talk about the teams he played on and stuff, but this guy, when you have big stuff like that, and I'm going to gravitate to stuff a little bit during this process, a little more than just numbers for me, because I can't help it. I scout, this guy's, when you have stuff like that, you miss big sometimes. And because his stuff was so big, and I don't know, I don't know that any 2 of today's pitchers, and I'm talking, you pick the 2 best pitchers you think that are out there. I don't think when their careers are over, if you combine them, they'll equal. They won't have 7 no-hitters between the 2 of them. They won't have 5,000. They won't have the win totals. I don't think we'll ever see that.
Or the innings pitched. I mean, I look at this number here that's in 1974, He's got 332.2 and 2/3 innings pitched. Pitched. And there's a guy that threw heat. He wasn't Jamie Moore up there throwing the ball 65 miles an hour up there. He is grunting extremely hard on every delivery. And he said with that leg kick. But one of the other things that may be underrated on him was his lower body strength that the guy had. We talk about his arm all you want. But that guy, from his waist down and his hips and his legs and he was strong as anybody that's probably ever laced up play the game of baseball. And he took great care of himself.
Well, so another thing he did was, as soon as he got off the mound, he got on the stationary bike and pedaled for another 45 minutes. Now, the kind of funny irony is the reason they did that back then, guys would go run poles, and you'd see a lot of starting pitchers did something right after. They thought they were flushing the lactic acid out of their system. Well, it turns out there's really no such of that going on back then or now. But how much did that contribute to that lower body strength? That after going out and giving those Herculean efforts, throwing 238 pitches in one game, and then getting on the bike for 45 minutes afterwards, how much did that help that? I got to tell you one other funny story. I represented Kevin Kennedy, the Ranger manager in mid-90s, and Nolan was on that team. And I heard the class television show, and I literally walked straight into Nolan Ryan, who, thank God, he had a towel on because he was just coming out of the shower, and I walked right into the middle of his chest. Bam! They go, "Hey, you okay there, little buddy?" I'm sorry. Rather embarrassing moment. Thank God he had a towel on.
Oh man, I will run through my last three pretty quickly because I don't want to bore people to death with this. The reason why I did it with this is a few steps. I want to get to the bigger part of all this equation here. I had number 3 was Christy Matheson, the Big Six. He is the National League all-time winner with 373 wins and 188 losses. I mean, we go through all that. He didn't have a ton of strikeouts. I get all that stuff, but I just looked at what this guy was doing for a little stretch there. His winning percentage from 1903 all the way to 1914, the lowest winning percentage he had in a year is .647. Not bad. Not bad for a stretch there. So basically 2 out of 3 games, he was walking away a winner for a 13-year stretch. That's not bad at all. The next one that I went with was number 2 would be the Big Train, Walter Johnson. And he's more of a longevity guy, like we kind of said off air. He wasn't a guy that was out there blazing and blowing people away. But I mean, for a 21-year career, you're not going to find much better. If you look at these wins, I mean, he's got 25, 25, 33, 36, 28, 27, 25, 23, 23, and 20, all in succession. That's some dominance. I mean, you can talk about the dead ball era, whatever. He pitched in the dead ball era, and he pitched outside of the dead ball era, and still was being pretty dang gone dominant. So for me, I had to have him. And obviously I had number 1 was Cy Young. And the reason why I have Cy Young in there is because I bet the rest of my small amount of money I have here that nobody is going to get 500 career wins. No, as you said before, you can combine Hall of Famers' careers and they won't come up with 500 wins if you had 2 people in there. And for the thing with Cy Young that I thought was really amazing here is this guy pitched in this is what I got to be, 1890, and he walked away from the game in 1911. He walked away with a 4-5 record his last year in there. But I looked out here, I still see 83. He had 33 earned runs in that, in that little spell there. that was it. I mean, the guy still had something left, but I mean, not much. And I'm thinking about how we get the ice on our arms and do all these things in between starts. This guy was probably going home and working on his farm on the next 2 or 3 days in between starts. So he never got a chance to give his body a rest. But the one thing I wanted you to know, Billy, is yeah, he had 511 wins. He had 315 losses. I mean, 315 losses in a career. I mean, that's a lot of decisions. I mean, he had 825 decisions. So there was no bullpen. There was no bullpen games. He started and finished what he started for sure. But this is the part I wanted to get to, and this was hard for me. I have 2 guys that I left off of the list that was hard for me, and I'll go with number 5. That's Sandy Koufax. I wanted to put him in there, and I talked to you a little off camera. I couldn't do it just because the 6-year or the 7-year run, that's about as dominant you'll ever see. I understand that. But prior to that, he was a wild, inconsistent bullpen pitcher, and then he had to retire even at his prime. And I couldn't put him on the Mount Rushmore over there, but believe me, I debated this last night.
Absolutely.
Back and forth, because that run from the late 50s to the mid 60s, Sandy Koufax, I don't think we'll ever see anything as dominant like that ever again. And that was 60 years ago? I don't think we'll ever see it. I just don't. I mean,
no, you're right. And if our Mount could pick a guy from a time, yeah, those 6 years are in there. It's like I could do that with Don Mattingly.
Yes.
For 6 years in his career, he was absolutely the best offensive and defensive first baseman for a while. But the back injuries and the issues, those things change it. And I get it, man, because Sandy.
Very, very similar leg kick to Nolan Ryan. Very similar. Very similar with the 12-6 curveball with the blazing gas that he had too. I mean, very eerie the way they pitched. If you just go back and look at the highlights, their form is very, very eerie, very similar. For Sandy Koufax, the other thing with it that I mean, his postseason work was extraordinary too. I mean, heck, he goes out and pitches on 2 days rest against the Twins, and the Twins in the World Series. He doesn't have a secondary pitch. He threw nothing but fastballs from the second inning on and gives up 1 run. Roseboro said, I don't know why I did signs. All I had to do was just location because I knew exactly what he was going to throw because he couldn't throw anything else because his arm hurt. That's something that analytics will never allow us to have that kind of greatness going again because he would have got pulled in the 6th or 5th round or whatever it may be, because we're not allowing starting pitchers to be great anymore. We're not allowing them to pitch out of jams. Hey, we just saw that 2 years ago with Blake Snell. Got a no-hitter. We yank him because he doesn't need to go through the lineup again. So these pitchers, no knock on them. It's just that we won't, in our lifetime, Billy, they will throw dirt on us before we see a guy go through and pitch 9 or 11 innings in a game. It's just not going to happen anymore. And it's a shame because God's created great pitchers. We're just not developing them anymore.
No, we're not. And you know what? I just realized? Blake Snell hasn't been the same since that pull.
No, he hasn't. Pitched well the other night, but no, he hasn't. The San Diego excursion has not been kind to him. It hasn't. And I don't know if it's this, like you like to say all the time. I don't know, because we know he has $1 million arm. The stuff is there. But he went to the National League, and he has not been the same pitcher since Mr. What was his dang on name that pulled him out of the game? I've gone brain dead on the Tampa Bay manager. But,
we shouldn't talk about that because I get it.
Yeah, I get
but
it.
all I can remember the most is the smile on Mookie Betts, and I don't know if it was Muncy or Turner that was with him.
Turner. Yeah, Betts and Turner. They both said, "Thank you, Lord."
They're like, they were just like, really? They're taking him out? He's been kicking our ass all day. All right.
I was thinking about lining up on the other side of the plate since I had no success on the strong side.
I'm about to lean into one. Take one for the team. Golly.
It's unreal. It's unreal to me. But yes, that was my pitcher side of that. Now, Billy, let's go with our Mount Rushmore 4. I'll let you start off with your number 4 guy that you got on your Mount Rushmore.
Okay. Well, so I really could put Babe Ruth on my Mount Rushmore as a pitcher. Probably should. But he's getting out there. Obviously, like I said, I'm going to lean to stuff. And so it's kind of a tie for me between two guys. I'll tell you what. I don't have them in order as much as I just have them. Yeah. I'll just throw Cy down there as my number 4 because 511 wins says it all.
Yes.
There's a reason why everybody wins the Cy Young Award every year or two. And, that's my.
And resiliency.
And Nolan might be my number 1. I mean, really. Only because the pitches he threw with the gas, with the stuff.
Unbelievable.
When was he ever bad? When is he ever a junker? He was always Nolan Ryan, and
he never had to change his game. Most pitchers, that have gas, they have to learn how to be kind of crafty people at the end of their career. What you had the best statement. His last pitch was 96 miles an hour or whatever it was before he, ripped up his elbow. I mean, I don't think Jamie Morgan hit 96 if he was 10 feet in front of the home plate. So it's unreal. It's unreal, and for that long.
Okay, so I got to put Roger Clemens on there, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sorry. People can say whatever they want about steroids and this and that. He still never tested positive for those. It got 7.
Right.
I was so good for such a long time. He had amazing stuff. He really got beat up in the New York media.
Yes, he did.
Hated him up there because he was the guy that would say, after a bad one, man, I couldn't establish the curveball tonight, or I really couldn't command my fastball. And people took that as
excuses.
An excuse. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't. But it was the truth. It was what was going on. That was his way of saying that. The way he goes. But I'm going to tell you right now, Roger Clemens is a good guy. And he proved it to me the night of Nolan Ryan's retirement party. He was pitching the next day for Toronto, in Toronto, at a day game, right? So he had a 1:00 game the next day in Toronto. He flies in Fort Worth, Texas. Nolan Ryan rented out Billy Bob's for his retirement party. Okay, Gaylord Perry sneaks me in. I'm doing a live shot for a show I produced called Sunday Night Showtime, and Gaylord sneaks me in, and I find Roger, and he comes out and does an interview for me.
Yeah.
And I tell my host, he's got an IFB in his ear, I do too, and I'm like, hey, I just got Roger Clemens. It's about to rain. We're ready to go. Don't go to break. Take him now.
Right.
He didn't hear don't. he said, Billy Martin said, go to break, and we're coming back with Roger Clemens. And I was like, oh, literally as soon as he said that, lightning, right? The rain starts coming down. I say to Roger, dude, you don't have to stand here for 2 minutes in the rain. Go in. I'll figure this out. I appreciate you doing it. He's like, Billy, I said I'd do your interview. I'll stand in the rain. I'm like, really, man, this isn't even national. He's like, come on, I don't care. Stood there and got soaking wet. When he had to go into the party just started.
Wow.
And he's pitching the day. I mean,
in another country.
You tell me that's not a good guy, but
got to go through customs twice.
Yeah, I'm a fan, and
his legs were eerily similar to Nolan Ryan's, and the thickness, that was another guy that you could tell, was very, strong as an ox from the waist down, and it delivered that way, Unbelievable. And he did it for a long period of time. I also think he got a bad rap in the Yankees while he was there, because he was a Red Sox. So, he's never going to really truly get firmly entrenched as a Yankee. But his postseason was spotty at times with the Yankees. I mean, there were some times there. I think that was a fair criticism of him, but he walked into a place that Bronx Zoo was never going to accept him as a Yankee anyway, because they deemed him the enemy for better half of 12 years. I have a theory on that.
I have a theory on that too. I think he took greenies. I think he took the legal uppers, whatever you want to call them. They're caffeine pills.
Greenies, 357s.
And when he had that moment with Piazza in the back,
yes,
I think that was the last time he took a greenie in a postseason game.
Yes.
Because if you watch that, he really did think he was fielding the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And you see this look on his face like, oh my God. The whole world just saw me try to field a bat. Yeah. And he grabs it and throws it. And then you see this other look on his face like, oh crap, I just threw it at Piazza. But then he has to get a real tough guy, because he's like, that was all an accident, I think. I really do. And I think it was because he was so hyped up on greenies, and then he realized, I don't need that stuff in the postseason. I'm going to be hyped up anyways.
Right.
You notice from then on, he was great in the postseason.
And he happened to do that in the worst city in the world. If he could have done it in Milwaukee, he might have got him. It wouldn't have been as bad. But those 150 New York writers all saw it from the press box. It made it 10 times worse. But his, in some of the lists that I read, Roger Clemens was very high on a lot of those lists. And when I went back and saw the numbers, he's probably going to be the last throwback pitcher, I guess, from that era that's going to have those kind of numbers. The 300 wins, the fourth, close to 4,000. He's one of the last ones. I mean, it's not going to happen anymore. And he was a flamethrower like Nolan Ryan all the way through. He never had to recreate his, pitching approach, even in his last years. It basically was, hey, hit it if you can, and get off the plate. That inside part of the plate, you better not be nudging too much over there. You're going to get one in the rib cage. He's the last throwback pitcher to me. I mean, I think Kershaw could be kind of that, but Kershaw never had that kind of gas, that intimidation with the fastball to do that. But I think Kershaw was one of those guys that did command both sides of the plate too, though, during that time. But yeah, that's a good pick. I like Roger, no question.
Well, my other guy, speaking of intimidation, and it's kind of a weird intimidation because Randy Johnson,
yes,
number 2 on strikeouts, right? I mean, 10 All-Star selections. Here the big unit, one of the tallest pitchers in history of the game, but yet he threw out here.
Unbelievable.
Probably so incredibly terrifying. But even that, think if he was up here. Think if he was, I mean, how much further to home plate is that guy? But, and he had 5 size. He was such amazing stuff. And another Tom House product that once he found Tom, his career took an about face. And ironically, Tom House almost lost his job because of that.
Wow.
Because he and Nolan had become friends, because they were always the 2 strikeout leaders every year battling it out. And but they also had an issue with walks, right? So Nolan introduced Randy Johnson to Tom House.
Wow.
But at the time, Tom House was the Texas Rangers pitching coach. So he worked with him on an off day, and 2 weeks later, Randy shoved it up their butt and literally like punched out 16 against the Rangers. And when the Ranger brass found out that Tom House had worked with him, the guy for the other damn team, he almost lost his job. And anyways,
that's great.
I'm sorry.
Is he the only guy that lost a tooth while pitching? Because he would grunt so hard, he grunted so hard, smashed his mouth so much, he lost an incisor during the game. He
also destroyed a pigeon in Detroit.
Yes, he did.
and I'll tell you what, man, if any of y'all have not seen this video, look up Randy Johnson hitting pigeon, because it's hysterical. I love that.
Maybe one of the best postseason duos that one year with the Snakes down there in Arizona with him and Kurt Schilling. I mean, his dominant Game 7, I think it was Game 6 performance against the Yankees that year was just out. Yeah, it was Game 6 because Schill pitched Game 7. And, but yeah, I mean, and the other thing is, and we talked about the Nolan Ryan and Tom Seaver being together. What about the Expos with Pedro Martinez and Randy Johnson?
Oh, Pedro
might still have a team in Montreal.
So close. Pedro is so close on my list. I mean, I think the only thing that kept Pedro off my list is that when he took a shot at
yes. Yeah, I have to hold that against him. Get a shot against old Popeye.
Like, really, come on, man. All you gotta do is shove him over.
Yeah.
I got a metal plate in his head,
I had no problems with him throwing at A-Rod. Zero problems with that. I had Kareem. I had no problems in throwing at him. But, you can't go after Popeye. You just can't do that.
No. You're a major league player in your prime, and he might be wearing a diaper. I mean, come on. That was the only thing I hated about him. But golly, how good was he, man? He was. That's as close. That was a very close one that almost made my list several times. Him and Maddox for me were the two that.
And I wanted to have Maddox a little bit higher, but I thought that Maddox. I hate to say this, but Maddox set such a level during the regular season. He seemed to never pitch that way in the postseason, though. He had some tough games in the postseason. Maddox. Clavin may have been more of a clutch pitcher on that staff for the Braves during that time. Yeah. And Smoltz definitely was. I mean, if you really want to go, if you have that beck and call, I know Smoltz ended up going into the back of the bullpen later in his career, but if you had to win a game back during that time, I wanted Smoltz or Glavine pitching for me instead of Maddox. And Maddox obviously is more talented of the three, but in the postseason. But yeah, Maddox it was hard for me to keep him off that list too, Billy, because that guy, when you played catch with him, the ball moved. They used to say that all the time. Ryan Sandberg said, I need to get a left-handed glove and a right-handed glove to play catch with Maddox. It's just unbelievable how much that guy could just make a ball move. Now, don't get me wrong. Their perception sometimes got those borderline strikes, him and Glavine, a number of those years. But the old adage, if you pound the strike zone, you're going to get those calls. I mean, it just is. If you're wild, you're not going to get those calls. It comes as human nature. You don't think Ted Williams had a few strikes go by and the umpire said, well, he's got the best eye to ever played a game. That had to be a ball. So, it happens, in basketball, it's the same way. So, but yeah, I do like the Maddox call. It was hard to keep him off. No question.
Well, so that's my 4. I think it's time we got to talk hitters, and even there,
I think we'll probably have a few of the same. I mean, I'm sure that you got Babe Ruth on your list. I mean, I know you do. He's the best player to ever play the game. So,
Babe, and I couldn't leave Lou off it either. I tried to talk myself into it because he played first, but
I have Lou Gehrig at 5. And believe me, after our last week's discussion on Lou Gehrig, it really was hard for me to keep him at 5. It really, really, really was. And the only reason I probably did the swinging vote for me is that if I have Babe Ruth number 1, so he has the most iconic record, 713 for how long? And if the guy that broke it is not on their Mount Rushmore, I felt like my list not be right then. So I have Hank Aaron at number 4. That was the only reason. And the other thing that went for Hank Aaron that we've said before, take away his 750 whatever home runs it is, he still has 3,000 hits. So he may be the most underrated, iconic player to ever play the game is Hank Aaron. People never say he's the best player to ever play the game. They always said the flash of Willie Mays was better. They said the great arm of Roberto Clemente was better. They said Mickey Mantle with his home runs was better during that era. But all he did was bust out 40 home runs, 35 home runs every year. Above average.
I will quote the great Mickey Mantle. Quit comparing me and Willie. Hank was better than both of them.
Yeah. I mean, and here's a guy that played from 54 to 1976. Now, some people want to say that he kind of held on those last 4 or 5 years and played that that little bandbox up there in Milwaukee. And then he came back and played in the bandbox.
He's still facing major league pitching in that old bandbox.
Yeah, no kidding. Even he still hit almost 100 home runs in his last 4 years of his career. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't even sniff 50 career home runs that played a long time. Here's a guy on the back end still belting them out, doing what he had to do. And for what he had to do to try to break, the Babe's record, what he went through the season before, the start of this season, and Bowie Kuhn, the commissioner of baseball, decided to not go to Fulton County Stadium that Monday night against Al Downing to be there, the commissioner of baseball. Now, I want to know what was more important for Bowie Kuhn to not be there at that historic event. What could there have been? Was he part of Watergate? I mean, what are we talking about here at that point in time? That's amazing to me. And I mean, we've all know about the racial undertones and all the letters and the threats and all the letters and all that other kind of stuff. For him to be as calm as he was when he ran around second base with 2 guys running on the field, fielding all those death threats those years is amazing to me. Because I think I would have been a little spooked. I think I would have been a little spooked during that time in the Deep South. And I'm getting all these letters and all this stuff. And here, 2 guys run on the field that I don't know from A to Z. I might have done the Reggie Jackson and the Chris Chambliss game and start just belting people running to the dugout. I might have. That's crazy, but yes, I'm with you. That was the only reason I had Lou Gehrig at number 5. But I did want to bring up something on Lou Gehrig that I thought was amazing. This is postseason, Billy. All right. So he played in 7 World Series games. 4 of those, he hit over 300. He hit 348 and 26. 27, he hit 348 and 26, 308 and 27. In 28, he batted 545. In 32, he batted 529. The other 3 World Series, his average was 292, 294, and 286.
Oh, wow.
Is that the most dominant postseason numbers ever? I mean, 10 home runs, 35 RBIs, and 8 doubles, and how many triples? And he's got three triples.
Wow. Wow.
It's unreal when I looked at the postseason alone. We'll never see that again.
That's just World Series play.
And 6 rings. Won 6 out of 7. It was such an eye-opener for me. It just was such an eye-opener for me. And I go, wow. And he had to retire at age 35. Yankees went on the World Series that year that he retired. He would have added to that, to that deal if he wasn't hurt, if he wasn't sick. Unreal. I mean, it's just unreal when I think about him. Now, Billy, I'm sure you probably have Ty Cobb on your list. And you do, yeah.
Do it. And that's really it. I love Ty Cobb. He's my all-time 2-hole hitter, and I didn't put him on there.
I've got something that's going to blow your mind. From 1907 to 1925, he collected 3,672 hits. There's your 3,000 hits right there in that span. He averaged 204 hits a year during that span. Averaged wow. 204 hits. He had the record forever of 248. No, Hack Wilson. I'm sorry. He was second to Hack. Hack Wilson had 250 something. He had 240 hits, 8 hits in a season, which is third most, until that man Ichiro came in here and now has the all-time most hits in a season. He's the one that got it. But I mean, I looked at that and said, how do you average 204 hits in 13 years? That's sickening. And I know he played in the dead ball era, but Billy played 8 years out of the dead ball era. So it's not
fair. True. And what's not fair to him is he didn't try to hit home runs.
No.
That wasn't ever part of his game.
He played in some stadiums that didn't have a fence. And he wouldn't have hit any home runs at the Polo Grounds with it being 483 feet to center field. But yeah, that's his numbers. 4,200 hits. Obviously only surpassed by Mr. Red, Pete Rose. That's something that he'll be second for infamy. Pete Rose and him are going to be first and second for as long as this earth is still on around, because nobody's going to come even close to sniffing out that. And his lifetime batting average is what I wanted. Oh, that was the other thing. His lifetime batting average was, again, give me just a moment.
363 or something.
366.
366? Yeah,
366. I mean, he could go 1 for 3 and his average goes down.
I think about that. That's a great way of looking at
it. That's ringing it. Now, I know if you can say that, oh, the pitcher wasn't the same, wasn't right. You can't get rid of the benchmarks. You can't overlook the benchmarks.
No.
I tell people all the time, I said, yes, it's a different era, but 4,200 hits is 4,200 hits, buddy.
Yep. Right.
I know both of you and I both had Ted Williams, I believe, in top on our Mount Rushmore. Did you have him outside of it?
Well, I vacillate on this one too, because like if he doesn't serve 5 years in the military,
yeah,
he might. It's between him and Babe who's number one, I think, and obviously we didn't get that. And so for me, it was like, how do I not put Barry Bonds on there? How do I not? I mean, so we count the steroids thing. I then I don't count him. And I didn't like playing with him when we were kids because he always quit at every game we played, and when his father played for my father. But
he took his ball and went home.
You had to put Hank on there. I had to think about him, and then it's so hard for me to not put Mickey Mantle on any list because,
sure.
But with his injuries, Casey Stengel wouldn't let him steal bases. He was faster than anybody we've even named. You know, he could hit the ball farther than anybody we've named.
Either side of the plate.
He's the most talented athlete that I think's ever played the game. It has the most tools, but he was always hurt. They taped him up like a mummy before every game, you know, and he played a long career with all those injuries.
Yes,
and it's another one's off my list, but it's just like drives me stinking crazy.
In the media mecca of the world, nonetheless. So, I mean, every at-bat that Mickey Mantle took was a pressure at-bat. Everyone. He wasn't tucked away in the Philadelphia Athletics lineup. Let's say that, on a St. Louis Browns lineup, where you had maybe one or two guys that are writing at those games. It just didn't happen. Another thing about Ted Williams that he does kind of get a little criticism for is his World Series. He was man enough to say he was hurt, but that's not the reason why he had a bad World Series. He only batted 200 in the World Series. He had 5 strikeouts, 5 base on balls, 1 RBI. They ended up losing to the Cardinals 4 games to 3. And I know that's what he took to his deathbed that was his disappointment of not winning a World Series where I'm not going to give him an excuse, but he wasn't healthy. I mean, there was no question. I mean, think about a healthy Ted Williams. You don't think he could have been the difference in one of those ball games from being a loss to a win?
Absolutely.
I mean,
another thing we don't talk about with these guys, Babe, Ted, Mickey, Lou, they all swung and yeah. And batters were so big and heavy. I had a conversation with Ted. We were having breakfast, and he spent some time with me after my father passed, and they had become friends late in their lives because they hated each other as players with the Red Sox Yankee thing, and he was talking to me about being an agent in today's game and how different it was. They said, "Man, I wish about."
Right.
I'd have crushed my wrists and forearms. And I looked at him, I had more power. I mean, come on, he had plenty of power. And he looked at me and goes, "Oh, hell no. I had plenty of power. So I could stop my damn swing when I was fooled." Because those bats they swung were so heavy that once you committed, you better not stop or you're breaking that wrist.
Yeah, you're breaking that wrist. Yeah, no question. No question. and try to catch up. You got to swing a little early, catch up on some of those fastballs with that big ass bat too. I got one for you that I think is another guy that's very underrated that almost made my Mount Rushmore, and that'd be Stan the Man Musial. That guy, I mean, he had 1,815 hits at home, 1,815 hits on the road for his career. I mean, we talk about that Colorado Rocky. We talk about those balances and doing this and trying to correct averages from here. That's dominant. I mean, that is pretty dang on good. A 23-year career World Series champion. But I think he may be the Hall of Fame man of baseball, too. You will never hear anybody say one bad thing about Stan Musial. Not one thing at all. They said he went out of his way to help rookies. He went out of his way to make – he even tried to help the blacks in the early 60s with the Cardinals when they couldn't stay in the hotel room down for spring training. He was, for a left-handed hitter, he was about almost as perfect as Ted Williams was. Close. Very eerily. I still give Ted Williams the better swing by a nudge. But boy, you can make an argument that Stan Musial had a pretty swing back in the day also. And he played on some real good Cardinals teams that were really good for a long extended period of time. But yes, Stan Musial made it 7 on mine just because of the 18-15 at home and 18-15 on the road. That's unbelievable to me.
That's pretty cool. Right.
It's like Roberto's 3,000 hits. You'll just probably never see that happen again, something of that number. Roberto lands on 3,000, and he's got 18-15 and 18-15. It's unreal. I did have Willie Mays at 6, Billy. One of the things I did think the knock on Willie Mays is what we kind of talked a little off camera is not getting those San Francisco Giants teams of the 60s to the World Series, albeit they had a juggernaut to try to beat in the Los Angeles Dodgers during that time. I understand. But as we said a little off camera, Billy, he played with 5 Hall of Famers for a good portion of his career and then got Bobby Bonds to come in late after that in 68, 69, who was a lot of people were comparing to be the next Willie Mays at that time. I mean, and then he had Chris Spire at shortstop. I mean, George Foster was in that lineup for him during that period of time. The guy had some talented players around, and he never put the team on his back and got them over the hump. Say a Bob Gibson or say a Mickey Mantle to carry a team through that kind of a deal. He never quite did that. He almost reminds me of the poor man's Duke Snider in a way. Duke Snider could never get over the hump of getting his team to win a world championship, albeit had talented teams, had to try to get over the Yankees. I get it. But he reminds me a lot of Duke in that capacity, fair or not fair, but that's, that kind of where I had Willie at. I didn't know where you had Willie on your list.
Like I say, I love Mickey Mantle's quote the best because people always compared those two. And it's an unfair comparison because Willie was healthy most of his career. Mickey wasn't. And Mickey tried to play through it. And, Willie, Mickey, and the Duke. Willie, Mickey, and the Duke. You heard that all the time. And that's why Willie. Quit comparing me to and Willie. Hank's better than both of us. And that made life easier for me. But
it's great. I will say something about Willie Mays. There may have not been a more athletic player to play the game, from, obviously speed, throwing arm, fielding ability, power, stolen bases, the whole shooting match. He may have been one of the most feared players that ever played this game. I would say that in that aspect. He could be rough to deal with, Willie Mays was a very moody player. I think that kind of hurts him a little bit in the media's eyes a little bit. He could be tough. He's a tough pill. He's still a tough pill in some of the interviews late in his life. Still a little bit. He's still got that edge, I don't know if he just carried that chip on his shoulder from the civil rights movements. Some of the books I've read, that's kind of what he had. I don't think he was ever really able to truly put it away. And then the comments about his godson, Barry Bonds. He defended Barry Bonds a number of those years under the steroid, investigations. Now, he's supposed to speak up for his godson. I get it. But you and I both know something was wrong during that time. You look a little stupid when you adamantly say you didn't do anything when you see the results of doing something. So I think he lost a few votes in that, in that aspect. Now, I will say this, he is the greatest baseball player alive right now. There's no question. There's no question about that. Because when Hammer and Hank went down last year, I said, well, Willie Mays, you got the throne now. So I hope the 91, 92-year-old Willie Mays is still here long enough, for, keep on killing it like you're doing. But I'm, for me, I had Willie Mays at 6, and I know there's some people that are going to really disagree with me on that, and that's fine. I want you to comment about that. Send us some comments. Explain to me why Willie Mays should be 4, 3, 2, or 1 in Mount Rushmore. But I was just telling you the reason why I don't have him that way, because I just don't think he had the elevating his team, willing their way to a World Series title. Right or wrong, that's how I have it, because in the both World Series he played, albeit his rookie year and his darn last year, he played in a World Series. So it's not fair. I'm not comparing oranges and oranges, but you'll never get rid of that look, that image of Willie Mays at home plate, helmet off, thrown out at home in that A's series, and him looking like he's about to cry. That's the lasting image that I have of Willie Mays in I believe it was in 73 or 74 of that. And it's hard for me to get that image out of my eyes.
Yep. Like a scout will say, you can't unsee a bad day.
Yes. A couple of mishaps out in center field too didn't help his day either. In that World Series too. I feel bad because it's really, he probably should have retired a couple of years before that. We put in a lot of your expectations should have been a lot lower than they were. But how can you really put low expectations on Willie Mays?
Yeah.
It's hard to do that, regardless if he's lost it or whatever. It's still freaking Willie Mays.
Obviously in everybody's top 10, and that's what makes this so hard. And nice, wrong, and it's because with mine, I've got. I could make a case for Ricky Henderson being in there.
Greatest
Barry Bonds
ever play.
He's
got the most walks behind Babe Ruth, I believe, right? Or is he ahead of Babe Ruth? I think he's ahead of Babe Ruth on walks.
He's ahead of Babe Ruth.
Yeah, I think he is.
I want to do for our next one, and this is really hard, man. Our all-time starting team, including your lineup.
Oh,
because think about it. Other than Lou, all we're talking about are outfield.
Yeah.
So you know what? No, we just need our all-time infield. All-time infield.
What we'll do is we'll do a recap of the All-Star game festivities of last week, and we'll do our top 9 with our pitcher. You want to put a pitcher in there or just lineup?
Well, you know what? We don't even have to make it top 9 because we're all talking about the outfielders right now.
Sure.
Let's just make it our all-time infield.
Okay. All-time infield next week. That's perfect. I like that. I like to do a little baseball research.
It's a weird one.
It's going to be good because the shortstop and the second baseman position are going to be really big. Really big on. Do you want offense over defense? There's a lot there in determining, who your all-time shortstop or second baseman is.
I got to have it all. I got it.
Right? Got to have it all. Excellent. So that means Louis Aparicio is not going to be your shortstop?
That's correct.
Well, guys, we really appreciate you guys listening to us. This is Paul Short with our Mount Rushmore baseball. Billy Martin, to me, I'm going to congratulate you in advance. I know you'll do a hell of a job with your clients in the next few days. I know it's going to be fun for you to finally put all that away and have some contracts get written up and signed, and having your players go off to their ways for them to try to live their dream. And I know that makes you happy, and I know that you'll do a great job behind them. Enjoy the All-Star game. Baseball's you got the floor for the next 6 weeks with zero competition. So, please, baseball, let's not crap the bed this weekend. Let's have a good weekend. Maybe Ohtani can do well again in the home run hitting contest. And Albert Pujols, it'll be nice to see him take some hacks out there in Chavez Ravine. Should have a little extra little buzz because it's out in LA. They're going to be doing that home run hitting contest when it's twilight dark. So that ball's going to carry in that home run hitting contest early out in Chavez Ravine. Now, once that sun goes down behind those mountains, it won't carry as much, but it carries early. That's one reason they don't try to play as many day games in Chavez Ravine, because the ball carries so much. If y'all remember the COVID year when we played those playoff games at Chavez Ravine, they were hitting the ball all over the place in those games. So it'll be fun though. I think the Hollywood spotlight would be good for Major League Baseball. And Manfred, just keep your mouth quiet and hand over the trophy at the end and be done. That's all you got to do. Just don't say anything. Just don't say anything. We don't want to insert both feet into your mouth again. Just shut up. But we do appreciate it. Billy, have a wonderful week. Kenny Matthews, Billy Martin, and we are out.